Hello, Kalie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for joining this blog series, and the viewers will be very elated to hear some things about you, your experience in IT, how you got into IT, and the benefits that you're receiving. So, I'd like to start off with what is your background? Could you tell us some about your story?
Absolutely. So I'm a registered nurse. I actually graduated from my undergraduate nursing school from Northwestern State University College of Nursing in Louisiana. That was in December 2011. After that, I started as an ICU nurse at a local hospital system, predominantly trauma ICU and surgical ICU. From there, I moved into the travel nursing world. Actually, I worked for more than one company, but came into accountable healthcare staffing, which just want to throw a plug in there. They were wonderful to me as a travel nurse. So once I found them, I stuck with them. Had a lot of amazing opportunities to work in different hospital systems and work with different technologies in those hospital systems. And I found a passion for technology that led me to go back to school for my master's in nursing informatics at the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Nursing. During that time, I was still PRN agency, and I had an opportunity to do a travel nurse position with Mayo Clinic when they moved from their homegrown system to Epic. And I was able to be go live support for them. But yeah, not too long after that, I graduated with my master's in, let's see, spring of 2019. And that brought me to my current position to date.
And I'm sorry, your current position title, what is that?
So it's kind of interesting. When I started, it was my position title was EHR Informatics Specialist. Our leadership kind of did a deep dive and compared it to ANIA standards. And now we are informatics nurses. So my current title is clinical informatics nurse.
Nice. Okay. And you mentioned the word opportunity, and that's a really big word for me, at least. So, like, what do you feel about the opportunities that there will be as far as, being an informatics nurse in the future, maybe?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in this realm. I find the position that I'm in, and anyone who moves from the clinical side to IT, it doesn't just have to be nursing, but I find it to be very important. I like to kind of say at a very high level, we are translators. So we speak clinician and we speak IT, because you can have brilliant IT folks out there, but they might not truly understand what it's like to care for a patient, what it's like at the bedside, why some of the things from a regulatory stance matter. And having that firsthand experience at the bedside, I feel like I have a deeper understanding of that. I think it also helps when vetting changes or items that our clinical end users need. So it's, I think, a very important role, and I see it only growing in the future. As we know, technology is just going to continue to grow. We're seeing more and more and more of it in the hospital systems. And so there's definitely current state opportunities out there, and I only see growth for this field.
Nice. Okay. And so, you've told us about where do you see things going in the future, but what about the challenges that, you face? Because I know a lot of people are going to have that question that you're currently facing in your job.
Career field. I think there are a few, and I'd like to speak to both challenges I faced coming into informatics and then kind of current state. But I think one of the biggest challenges is, how do you get into informatics, right? If you're interested in it. And then I think the other kind of side of that is that we do have such a need for bedside nursing, especially now with the pandemic. We do need those nurses bedside. So making that decision to move from bedside to IT is a big one. But then a big challenge is, how do I even get into it? And I kind of did it backwards. I went straight back into school, If I'm giving advice to those who are interested, I would say don't do that. Try to get involved, in your current organization.
Mm,
Start picking at IT, be a super user, join all of those projects, and that'll help you move into it. And you can continue on as just a bachelor's prepared nurse with enough hours in informatics. You can become ANI certified, and then go back to school. Or you can do it the backwards way, like I always do everything, and go straight into school. But I think that's a challenge. I think another challenge is moving in that transition from the bedside to the IT business side of the hospital system. Because at the bedside, it really is singularly a patient care focus. And when you move into the business IT realm of the hospital system, it's a very different environment, if you will. And
yeah.
so I think getting used to that is a change. And so I think some of those are the biggest challenges people face when moving from bedside into informatics.
Nice. Yeah, I could definitely see that as being a challenge. I mean, it in a sense is a challenge, but also you're leveraging a lot of your previous skills to make you, like a subject matter expert or someone that really can bring a lot of value to an organization from an IT perspective. So I think that's, paramount. And what do you feel like, or excuse me, what does your day-to-day look like? Because I know a lot of people are going to ask that question and want to see, like, what does it look like as a informatics nurse?
Absolutely. So the broad answer is it depends on what area of informatics you go into, because there are a lot of different routes you can take. But the actual answer for me, myself, and my current position, so my day-to-day, I have my major responsibilities. We'll start with kind of the ones that I think are a little bit lower on the totem pole and work my way up. But I'm currently in a hybrid model. So I am partially work from home, partially on site. On my on-site days, my job is to round on our clinical end users. So it's similar to the patient rounds that clinicians do, but the difference is I'm rounding to see if you have IT problems, and specifically Cerner power chart problems, which is the electronic health record we use in my current organization. But it's just the person there going, hey, is this working for you? Do you have any issues that maybe when you were bedside and you were way too busy to think about calling IT that I can come help you with, right? I also man a clinical support line. That's a shift-wise support line. And the goal of that support line is to give our clinical end users a direct line to our team. We can remote into their device and help with power chart issues. And it can be as simple as, since orientation, I forgot how to set up my patient list, to as complicated as I'm getting a true error message and we need a deep dive on the back end. But the bulk of my job is maintaining ticket requests. So our end users can put a request in through our service portal system. Those come to me and my team. We vet those requests. And sometimes in vetting those requests, you find, again, it's an education piece. Somebody says, I need this to be able to chart, and they just don't realize it's already there, right? But a lot of times there are things that do need to change. And so we vet those changes. We actually put them into an SBAR, which, in the healthcare scene is situation, background assessment, recommendation. And we present them to governance councils to have discussions about if the change should go through. If it passes governance, my next step is to design that change. So how should this look? It's basically, what do I need to tell our clinical systems team, who is our build team, to do, so that on the end user side, they're seeing or receiving that change in the EHR as they need. Then I pass it over to our clinical systems team. They do all of the builds. I will say you can do build as an informatics nurse. And if that's something that interests you, it's a great thing to learn, have on your resume. But then back to my workflow, clinical systems sends it back to me. I do user acceptance testing. We do like a dual value evaluation, on our team. And then I take it back to the customer to review. And that's just simply, is it working as designed? Is this what we were trying to accomplish with this change? I prepare any go live education, and that can be as simple as an EHR update, which is what we use in my organization to send out messages about IT changes within PowerChart. Or it can be a job aid, or it can be as complex as elbow support and needing a web-based training. So, but we prepare all that and make sure that the end users are prepared for go live. And then go live is when we take it out of our non-prod environment where all of this design testing goes on and into prod to be used by the clinicians. And so that's like the bulk of my job. I do that same kind of workflow for projects as well. So I work on projects as either a lead CI, or a small enough project, I might be a project manager for that project as well as the lead CI.
Okay. Nice. So it's a lot of, it sounds like there's a lot of consulting that's going on from your perspective. And so then again, that's where some of that background clinical experiences is bringing a lot of value to what you're currently doing. So thank you for that. And that brings me to my next question. When you made this transition into being an informatics nurse, what are some of the pros? What are some of the things that you feel like, hey, I like this a lot better than what I was doing previously?
So I will say that with the caveat that I have about 10 years of clinical experience, and almost all of that was ICU, and ICU has a very high burnout rate and things like that. So I think I was, for one, ready for a transition. So that, you know, is a big pro that I was ready to make that change. But I think, I don't know, it's very exciting to be on the side where, although I'm not giving direct patient care, I understand that the changes that I'm helping to make a huge difference bedside. I've yet to meet an informatics nurse that doesn't kind of have the same story where they go, I was bedside and I was going, who made this? Do they know what I do? Do they know my workflows? Do they even understand? And so being able to have a voice in the technology that's used bedside, I think is a huge pro. And I think that our clinical end users really appreciate that. When they're talking to me about what's wrong, I understand why it's wrong and why one click can make all the difference in a very stressful, busy day. So I think that's a big pro. I love the ability to work from home. And there are a lot of informatics jobs out there that are fully remote. And I think that I do definitely have a better work-life balance than I did working 12-hour night shifts.
Oh,
so
man.
yes, so I think these are all major pros to the position.
Okay.
I'm also, I'm sorry, I'm a big nerd. So like I get to be a huge nerd working in IT and healthcare. So.
Yeah. Okay. And I was going to ask you some more about burnout. Like, what does that look like? What's causing that burnout, do you think, for like a lot of?
In nursing? Oh goodness. So there's definitely a nursing shortage. I mean, this was true, I guess it's been over 10 years ago now when I was, you know, starting nursing school or graduating from nursing school. So there's definitely a nursing shortage. I think that when you are bedside, especially when you're understaffed, which back to that, the nursing shortage, so it tends to be that you are understaffed. There's so much that you have to think about, and nursing is both being very intelligent about what you're doing. You know, you have to understand people's body systems, pharmacology, like all of these things. But it's also a trade. You know, you have to be able to start an IV and a Foley and turn a patient, and those are all skills that you learn as well. But you have all of these things to do, and then you have you know, so much charting to do. And the charting is what's important in a sense, because if you don't chart it, you didn't do it. You could have spent your entire 12-hour shift in a patient's room caring for that patient, and if you don't chart it, it never happened. So you have this obligation between, you know, and especially in the ICU, making sure that your drips are fine, that your patient's vitals are fine, that, you know, the ventilator is working, all of these things that you're thinking about. kind of from a science standpoint, right? And then you have all of this charting that you need to do to make sure that you showed that you did these things for this patient. And then on top of that, you also have the caring factor in nursing. So, you know, you have somebody who's very sick in the ICU, especially trauma ICU. Oftentimes, people don't intend to come into the trauma unit, right? So, you know, you have these like sudden things that happen to people unexpectedly, and you're there taking care of them and their family members. So you're also having to provide, you know, this deep level of care too. So it's this huge combination of responsibilities. And when you're understaffed and you don't have all of the things that you need, it becomes very stressful. And ultimately, you know, it's just a very stressful environment to be in. And it can be very rewarding. I mean, I have so many stories where I've had some very rewarding experience where we were really able to help people. But on a day-to-day, it is a lot. It's a lot to take on.
Yeah, I could see that, especially with the 12-hour night shifts.
Yeah.
So
one of the places that I worked, I was a new nurse. I was much younger then, but we actually would do 7 on, 7 off. So we'd work 7 12-hour night shifts in a row. And it's the only hospital system I've ever worked in that worked, but it worked there. But, you know, again, you know, you're trying to do the best that you can, and with limited resources and a lot of expectation and a lot of weight on your shoulders to do well and make sure that you're not doing harm to anyone.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And so when you made this transition, I know I could assume that a lot of people that are in the nursing, they may be kind of apprehensive because of the earning potential. And so could you elaborate some on the earning potential as an informatics nurse? Are they good salaries or?
Yeah, so informatics definitely has good salary opportunities. There are dependencies on that as well. You know, sometimes if you're looking at truly entry level nursing informatics roles, it may be harder to earn the same that you could bedside, especially if you're doing travel nursing, especially right now with the pandemic. There are so many opportunities with travel nursing for crisis work and that type of thing. But my current salary and the salary that I've had or started from coming in was wonderful. It was better than what I made bedside or as a travel nurse. And I think there's a big thing to say too there though about work-life balance as well. So obviously numbers on a page and your annual salary is important, but at the same time, you know, when you look at your work-life balance, that's a piece of it too. And so being in the IT side, I'm much more of a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday regular IT position, 3 days a week, work from home. So those are things that I would not have been afforded ever as an ICU nurse. So you know, those are things to consider too. But I think that there are definitely great salaries out there, and I think the more skills that you have as an informatician, the more that opens it up. And it also is about what direction you want to go to with nursing. You want to move into informatics, into leadership or things like that. So, but in general, I would say the salary is good, and nurses wanting to move into this field would be pleased.
Okay. And so we've talked about a lot of the good in your transition. Is there any bad? Because I don't know if there's, it sounds like everything is like good. Is there anything that's like negative, like, man, I kind of don't like this, or?
I would think that in everything in life, there's got to be at least some bad, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think, you know, well, I'm trying to think if I want to frame this more in my current role or as informatics as a whole. Like, would you prefer what I see as the negatives of an informatics as a whole, or like what I see as the negatives in my current position?
Let's go with your current.
All right. You're gonna get me fired now.
Right. No.
So in my current position, I honestly feel that the largest negative is kind of the rounding piece of my position. And I say that to say, I think there is a lot of value in meeting your clinical end users in person. You know, not that you can't make wonderful relationships with end users through Zoom, but I think for them, seeing you out there next to them or getting to meet you in person kind of has a different feel to it. But I think that once you've created quality relationships with the areas that rely on you, you don't really need to be there, you know, boots on the ground unless there is a go live or a serious issue, you know, downtime with the system, because they'll reach out to you. Once they trust you, they'll reach out to you. And I think it's frustrating for me because I find that when I'm working from home with less distractions, I can get a lot of things done that in the end are going to make a bigger impact for these end users than me just walking around saying, hey, any problems today? Right. So that would be in my current position. But again, if you go into an informatics role that's fully remote, you know, that would need to be something to be considered. So I think for informatics in general, moving to the business IT side of hospitals is a very interesting transition. And I know we kind of already talked about this, but you know, coming into informatics outside of my very first nursing job, because every other job that I've held has been travel after that, you know, you don't get like a true job interview, right? You know, I remember one of my travel assignments, I'm on the phone with the manager for the interview and I'm all ready for any questions I might get. And it was a matter of, this is the type of patient we take care of. This is the expectation in our unit. Do you think you can do that? Okay. Yes, I can. All right, we can't wait to see you here, you know? But yes, you start moving back into true interviews, right. And then you move over to the business side of the hospital, and you have to think about the business side of the hospital. I feel a lot more than you do bedside, especially if you're not in a charge nurse or leadership role bedside. So I think transitioning to that and really grasping the importance of that on top of, because, you know, again, bedside, your focus is that safe patient care and taking care of these patients and these families. And having to focus more on the business side of the hospital system is definitely interesting. I don't know that it's a con, but it is just something that might be a little bit unique, like moving into this role, especially straight from bedside.
Okay. So just a little bit of a different type of challenge per se is what I really got. Yes. Yep. I could see that. I could see that. And so my final question is this: where do you see yourself in the next 5 years from now?
Oh my goodness, on a yacht.
On a yacht. That'd be nice.
Right?
Right.
So, I mean, we can have dreams right now.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. So I am I like to be a very present person, and I know that's an interesting answer, right? Because it's like we always think about the future, and we have to think about where we want to be. But I've also learned throughout my career to date that it's good to have an eye on what you're looking for, and it's important to have goals, both short and long term. But I'm a very present person. So right now, my current goals are just really improving the skill sets that I have as I move forward. In 5 years, I'd like to see myself have further skills, so build skills, and I might even try to, you know, move into some of the more research side of informatics, because I think that that's invaluable. My current leadership feels that I have the skill sets for a leadership position, so that is something that I'm also strongly considering moving into, that type of informatics leadership role. But I say all that to say I'm also a very present person, and I realize how quickly things can change. So I also try to keep my opportunities open. You never know when someone's going to bring you a really amazing opportunity and it not be what you expected. So
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the sky's pretty much the limit, especially in IT. There's so many different opportunities, so many different routes you can go. So as long as, you have the focus of continuously developing your skill set to make yourself invaluable, so then you have the option and the opportunity to go in the direction that you want to go into. So that's amazing.
I absolutely agree. And I, I'd like to also say, for those who are considering nursing informatics, if you're a nurse at bedside and you consider it, that's already step one. A lot of nurses don't want anything to do with the IT side of things. They're like, I just want it fixed and, let me move on. And a lot of people don't want to leave that true patient care role. But if you've already considered it, that's probably an indication that you're a person that likes the IT stuff and you have that interest there, which is, important. But I say, get on those go live projects, be a super user, vet your IT department. It's definitely worth looking into. I'm very happy in my role. I'm very happy in my growth. Your parents will never know how to explain what you do to their friends, but that's okay. And yeah, but I think it's a great career.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great career too. And Kalie, I thank you and I appreciate you sharing with us your background, your experience, and a lot of the opportunities there are in your field. And I think that people will really gravitate to a lot of the words that you've said.
Thank you so much.
So thank you. And